This is Chris.
And I'm Dan.
And today we're taking out a Godzilla engine.
This is what we like to call a lifter tick. We've seen this a lot with a lot of bucket trucks and like idling vehicles, things that you have like PTOs and they'll just keep it idling for hours. And what ends up happening is it causes low oil pressure. The needle bearings start to get worn out and the rollers flatten down. The cams become damaged, and metal in the filter is usually how you can diagnose this. You just pop the filter open, you cut off the top of the oil filter cutter, take apart the filter insides by just using a razor blade, going around the edges and then cutting it, slice it down, and then you can open it up like an accordion. But for the most part, you're just going to listen for the noise and you're going to hear it on the upper end. If you find yourself enjoying this, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to see anything in the future, let us know in the comment section below. Now let's get into the removal and installation.
So starting off, you want to take off the grill. Clearly we already took it off here. We didn't show that footage. You take off the headlights, two 10 mils on the top. After you take off the grill, there's a 10 mil holding against the headlight there. But then after that, there's like a little black shield here. There's just a wire holding onto the horn there, and
Along with your front camera, if equipped.
now you want to take off your 10 mils in the front there, holding onto your power steering cooler and your hood latch. And you're just going to put those off to the side along with the reservoir.
Along with evacuating your AC, you can see me disconnecting lines for the power steering reservoir, pulling that off to the side. There's a few clips on the bottom of the fan shroud. You can push the fan shroud in a little bit. Helps clear out the fan when you're pulling that whole radiator assembly out. Make sure you disconnect your battery terminals.
There's a 8 mil and a 10 mil holding onto the reservoir on the top, and an 8 mil holding onto the front of the top radiator hose. You just take that off and you pop the clips out for the lower radiator hose and the top radiator hose. You might need a pry bar to bang out a little bit. You can see me using that. And after you get that out, now you're pretty much ready to pull it out. Just get the harness all unclipped from everything. There's also one more wire holding onto a impact sensor on the back of the little cross member there. After you pop that out, you should be ready to take it out. Take the 13s off the top and the sides.
This cooling fan is reverse thread, so make sure you're going the opposite thread so you tighten it to loosen it. It ended up breaking on us, so we have to actually remove the fan blade and then replace the clutch later on in this video.
You see me taking off the intake manifold. You just have to take off the wiring harness. It's clipped all around the top there. There's a couple clips in the back you have to pop out, and then you have just to push that over to the side. You have two little quick connects for your hose that runs from one side of the rail to the other rail. You just pop those off, your little fuel line. And then you have the purge valve sitting on top of the intake. You have to pop that out of the socket, but you can keep it connected to the actual intake manifold. You take off the line in the back and the connector, and that should be plenty of clearance for you to take the 8 mils out, pull the intake manifold off.
Now this truck has a dual alternator setup. You'll see me disconnecting two cables on there. There's two 13s holding battery cables on there, along with the harnesses going to them. A few 15 mils mounted to the cylinder head. Just take off the entire bracket. And you'll see me taking out the 10 mil for the power steering line. And there's following three other 10 mils on the power steering pump.
You're taking off the heater hoses that go to that auxiliary pump in the front there. The auxiliary pump is on every single one except for the 650s and 750s, I'm pretty sure. And you want to just disconnect it from the auxiliary pump. Ford tells you to take it off from the actual, take it off of the engine and pull the auxiliary pump to the side. Don't do that. Just take it off the auxiliary pump and pull those two lines off to the side. Keep the line attached to the engine. You want to take off the two little connectors that hold on to the AC compressor. And then you want to take that 13 off of the bottom right there, where it's holding onto that same harness. That way you can pull that off to the side, and then usually it'll just stay right in place after you take off the starter.
You also want to remove the AC compressor belt, and there's a 13 mil right below there that holds the harness going down to the starter. Back further, there's also a connector going on the bottom of the AC compressor for the variable displacement compressor, along with a 10 mil holding that harness against the block.
You also have two 13 mils sitting on the top there for your bell housing. We're taking them off now. You can do it later, but you just want to make sure you get those out at some point. After you get to the bottom, you want to take off the rest of them, but you want to make sure that you're getting all of the bell housing bolts out before you start trying to separate the tranny. It's just going up now. All the harnesses are to the side.
You don't normally have to remove the entire Y pipe. In this video we are, because we're replacing it. Normally you just take out these 415s, two on each exhaust manifolds. And then you want to take out your starter and just let it dangle.
But you can see that he's taking everything off. There's two 10 mils on each side if you do have to take off the Y pipe. And you have 4 in total. You just want to pop those off, and then you might have to slide the brackets out to get them out of the way. After you get that out, there's 13s in the back holding that on. And now you can see me taking off the 13s that hold on to the oil cooler for the tranny. And on this one in particular, it has the regular quick connects on it. Some of them have like little pop styles where you just pull the little tab and they come right off. On this style, you kind of have to squeeze them with a pair of pliers and then wiggle the hose off.
From here, you remove the rest of the bell housing bolts along with your torque converter nuts. You want to loosen up that tranny mount in the back, 221 mils, and slide it back once you get all those bolts out of it, and then retighten it so you get a little bit of space between the engine.
On the driver's side, you'll have a little plug that's just a little grommet. You can pop that right out. You get a 15 mil in there, and that's where your torque converter nuts are going to be. So you're going to want to just turn over the engine until you feel a torque converter nut, throw 15 on there, get a small ratchet in there. Either that, or you could take off the coolant line that goes up to it. There's just two 8 mils holding that on, and it goes right to the oil cooler for the engine. And you can pop that out, and it makes it a little bit easier. But if you don't do that, it doesn't really matter. You can just sit there with a little wrench and break them free, and then you can get a light power ratchet to get them out the rest of the way as long as you have a wobble 15.
There's also a little inspection cover you see me taking off right there. There's just two 13 mils, just taking them out, slide it right out of there.
Also allows you to line it up a little bit easier so you don't have to stick your hand right up in there and feel the torque converter nuts. You can see it's a 21 on the front there with a long bar. It's usually pretty easy to turn over the engine. If your engine is stuck, you're going to have to pull the engine out with the torque converter attached. And then when it gets out, then you can take off the 15s that hold on to the torque converter and then throw that torque converter back into the transmission if your engine is locked up. Then you can see the starter is dangling now. You're just going to leave it there. Once you get the engine up in the air, you can put that starter right onto the radius arm, and it'll kind of just keep the harness right in place for you to put the engine back in. You can see him taking off the two motor mounts on each side. He's just going to take off the 3 21 mils on the passenger side and the 24 mil on the driver's side, the one long bolt that goes through. But on the passenger side, you can see that he pulled out the stud with the nut. So he ended up driving that back in. We used a little bit of heat and got that nut off. So now we're going to have to fix that after we get the engine out and put that back into the actual mount. Now we're coming back down. You can see me going in there with a chain. So there's a little, I'll pull a picture there's a little adapter that you can put on the back of the head that helps you really get the chain in there. It goes to the back of the head, and then there's one for the front. We don't really use the front one for the front. There's like a nice stud that they have already on the front cover there. And you can just put the chain right through that and put a 13 on, one of the 13s that you took off from the fan shroud. And you can just put that right on top of it, and it'll hold the chain perfectly fine.
Now we're setting up the engine crane. In the background, I already have the new engine set up on the forklift. Once we pull this out, we're going to switch over all the accessories over to the new engine.
Just make sure you watch out. There is the fuel line that comes off in the rear. That fuel line is a little bit of a nuisance. Sometimes it will catch on to the harness and it can pull apart connectors. I've had it pull apart a coil pack connector before. You don't really want to have that happen, so just make sure you pull that off to the side after you get it going out. You might need to use a pry bar to get it loose and free it up a little bit. Once you get it out, it's pretty simple. You just pick it up and get it out all the rest of the way.
It's a little time consuming. Make sure you're clear of everything. Make sure you're clear of the cowl.
Now we got it off to the side. You can see Dan taking off the manifolds and the
Motor mount.
Now I'm going to be working on the harness and taking off most of the harness and all the coil packs and getting all the ignition wires out. And we carry it over all as one. You don't have to disconnect everything individually. You can keep the whole harness attached to the coil packs, and then once you get over to the other side, you can just kind of screw those back in and everything lines up perfectly fine. In a second there, you're going to see me take off the flywheel, and on the back of the flywheel, after you take the flywheel off, there's going to be a reluctant ring. You want to take that reluctant ring and make sure you put that on the new engine, because if you don't, then your engine won't turn over. There's also a crank sensor right behind there. You want to take that off and make sure you put that in. Again, if you don't, your engine won't start. So you want to make sure you remove all of these things and put them back on in the proper order. It's kind of hard to mess up this flywheel. They have offset bolts, so you can't put it in wrong.
Physically can't put it in wrong.
Now you can see we're taking off all the pulleys. Dan's on the other side working on the AC compressor. He's going to take that off. And all the coolant lines that we left on, instead of doing what Ford tells you to do, you just take off those coolant lines now, and then you can put them on the new engine. You kind of want to put the harness on almost the first thing, because the harness sits behind the motor mount bracket. You want to make sure that you get all the knock sensors plugged in first. Now you can see us lowering the engine down. I already put on the flywheel, but now we're just going to set up the harness. Make sure you just get the U right, and the U goes straight across the back there. And then you just put the 8 mils all back in. You can kind of just tighten them up and make sure that you route the wires correctly. They kind of just fall into place after you do it a couple times. You'll really know where everything goes. But on the first time, the harness should fall into place. All the wires will kind of just lead you where you need to go.
On these motor mount, there's a little adjustment sleeve. You can tap those back. It helps to slide them in. We take it mainly for the driver's side one, since we took out the through bolt.
Kind of similar to like an alternator. When you pull out an alternator and you have that little sleeve you have to hang back. It's the same thing with the motor mounts.
Also, don't forget your 2 ground straps to go on the back of each cylinder head. Dipstick tubes are usually a pain. We usually order a new one every time we do a motor.
It depends on if it's rusty or not. I mean, if you need to keep the dipstick tube, you can just heat up the bottom. The O-ring's going to melt away, and then after the O-ring melts away, it should pop out pretty easily. You just replace the new O-ring after you're done. If you do have a new one, then you're fine, and you can just use an O-ring and just heat it up.
Now is a good time to take note and inspect your spark plug wires as well. Make sure there's no black charring in them, giving you signs of arcing.
You did just see me take out the old stud and put that back in. I just had to tap the hole a little bit, and then I got the old stud back in. If that happens to you, just tap the hole, put the old stud back in. The stud didn't do anything, but the threads were a little f***ed on the motor mount itself. And now that we have the harness and everything in, he's coming back with all the parts that we have. We have the new Y pipe and all the new gaskets for the exhaust manifolds and the new nuts. Now you can see us pulling it back over and getting it ready to go back in. We're pretty much just gonna pick it up and then get it as close to the back of the firewall as we can without hitting the cowl, and then lower it down and kind of get it into place. We're also going to set the torque converter here to be matching the flywheel so that it just kind of slides in easily. Also, we forgot to tell you that you have to take the tranny jack, and you have to take some sort of floor jack and put it underneath the tranny. That way the tranny doesn't fall down and destroy your shifter cable. So we get it right up to that firewall, we slide it down, we get it the rest of the way in. We're just trying to line up the motor mounts at this point. It's usually easier if you line up the driver's side first. That way it just kind of falls into place. And then the passenger side, you might have to just use a pry bar to pull over the studs, and then it'll fall right down. Once it falls down, you just pull the motor mount out, the jack out. You can lift it up. You don't have to worry about the tranny falling now, because now the flywheel is going to hold it into place. Once you get it up in the air, if you have a tranny jack, it helps a lot. You can just loosen up those 21 mils after you slid it back and tighten them. You can loosen those up, slide the tranny forward, and kind of just like work at it, get the torque converter set completely right, get some bolts started, and you can slide it right in. If you don't have a tranny jack, you might want to do it on the floor with a regular jack. That way you can climb it up, and you might want to like bench press it into place.
From here, it's pretty much reversal of removal or installing the torque converter nuts, installing the remaining bell housing bolts.
All new one-time use stuff. If you don't have new ones, you can reuse the old, but it's better off if you get new nuts for everything. And so he set down the tranny there. You don't need 2 people for this job. We just end up working together. It's team flat rate. We end up doing a lot faster. We got this engine done in 4 hours. Usually it takes Ford estimates 16 to 18 hours, somewhere in between there.
Yeah.
So if we can get 2 of these done in a day, pretty much. Just make sure when you're putting the engine in that the harness doesn't get caught in the motor mount above it. You want to make sure that it's underneath the motor mount, but not underneath the pan. Again, if it's underneath the pan, it's hard to get back out. You have to lift up the engine again and then pull it out. So you just kind of want to just make sure it's off to the side and in the spot. If you keep it on the radius arm, usually it's fine. You see Dan turning over the engine for me to get the rest of the torque converter nuts in.
That's when we install the Y pipe.
Since we had a cracked flange on the last Y pipe, we got a new one. We just used the old O2 sensors though. We just had to take them off and throw them on this one. We've got new 15 mils to go onto the studs on the back of the exhaust manifolds and new bolts to go on the back of it.
Now here I am installing the motor mount bolts.
And he already connected the coolant lines that go to the oil cooler there. If you did take off that one coolant tube, you can put that on now. You want to do it now before you bring the engine down, bring the truck down. Everything's tight. Make sure you get all the training bolts too, all the ones that you can't access from the top. You still should have the two from the top that you took off on the way up before. You just want to put those on first. Make sure you do that before you put the intake manifold on, because you have to take that back off to get that back in.
Here I'm reconnecting the lower radiator hose, and alongside of that lower radiator hose is another coolant line, and rehook that up.
Also, while you're back there, you want to make sure that none of the wires got pinched in between the bell housing, and make sure the training harness is still sitting where it's supposed to be.
And we're by the PCM hooking up the wiring harnesses. Now I'm installing the power steering pump.
That was the tool that you use in the back of the head. You want to use that tool. Put it on the back of the head. You can get your chain on the other side, and that's the nut that comes with it. You just put that right on. You can get that right off of Rotunda's website. You see Dan putting the power steering pump right back in, and the 10 mils that go back in it. He has new bolts to go back into it. The other ones are a little hard to get out, so we got new ones.
Now I'm reinstalling the alternator brackets. Just make sure you hook up the wiring.
You can see me putting the training harness. Make sure you don't put the training harness on the lower stud on the valve cover. You want to make sure you put it on the upper stud, because if you put it on the lower stud, it will touch the exhaust manifold or the exhaust, and it will burn up the wires. You want to make sure you put it on the upper stud, the one that's more towards the valley. Here you're putting on the belt for the AC compressor. That one's pretty simple. If you have the tensioner style, the tensioner just goes in the middle, and then you go from compressor to idler pulley harmonic balancer. Main drive belt, you want to just put it as the dog. We call it the dog. It looks like a dog kind of sitting on its ass with its feet and then his nose in the air. See it, you'll understand when you see it. Now I'm putting in the intake manifold, and I'm getting everything out of the way. They usually come with masking tape on new engines, and you just pull the masking tape right off. Make sure that none of the masking tape's in the holes anymore, because then the bolts won't torque down all the way. So you take all the masking tape off, you can throw that guy right in there. Take the little caps off of the rails. The engine comes with new rails and new injectors, so you just take the little yellow caps off, you can just pop those bad boys back on.
At this point I'm preparing to install the radiator, hooking up all our wiring, AC lines.
Getting the batteries back connected and everything. Make sure you get those AC compressor connectors off the bottom there. There's also a low pressure connector that if you took that off, you want to put that back on now. It's a little bit of pain if you forget to put that on now. And also get those clips in the back of the intake manifold. There's 2 clips, holds on the harness. If you don't, I mean, it's not a big deal, but the harness could be in a position where it's not supposed to be. Also, you want to make sure you put your purge valve back into its sleeve. There's a little sleeve on the intake manifold. We took that off earlier. You want to put it back in there after you get everything tightened down. Get that 13 back on the bottom there, holding the harness back onto the bottom of the engine. And now we're just working on getting everything pushed back and making sure that we have enough room to put the radiator back in. We have our new clutch for our fan, and now he's just putting on the fan and getting everything pushed back still. He's adding in the upfitter stuff that came off of this truck. And here's our radiator. You just want to get the hoses lined up and get the lines for the AC condenser just put into place. And then you can get your 13s right in the top there. You don't want to put the side 13s on because you need the plastic piece first before you do that.
Also just reach your arm around, pull those 2 clips you pushed in earlier back into the fan, and hook up your wiring harnesses that push clips to the fan shroud. It runs along the bottom. You'll see me installing the air filter, airbox assembly.
Getting the wiring harnesses set up. You can see the strobe light harness that's sitting out there. You won't have that if you don't have strobes. The one wire that goes to the back, I don't know if you can see it that well, but there's a wire that goes to the back of the upper cross member there. And you want to make sure that you plug that back in, because that's going to be throwing a code in your airbag system. Now we're just putting in the 10 mils to hold on to the hood latch. And if you want to kind of match it up a little bit, otherwise your hood might not sit right. So you can see the bolt holes, you just kind of get it close. Then you throw on your power steering cooler and make sure you get your power steering reservoir back hooked up if you took off the lower hose there. Don't forget to plug in your hood latch, your front camera harness there. I mean, if you don't have one, it's gonna be that little brown cable. Just sitting there with a plug in it.
Install your headlights. And soon you'll install your grill. Take note of which bolts came out of where. Some of these headlight bolts are threaded, other ones are just like a coarse, like a wood screw type looking. You don't want to mix those up.
You will destroy the threads on one of the bolts if you do mix them up a little bit. Not a big deal. They're pretty similar bolts to other things. You can just take a self-tapper if it's one of the plastic ones. Here you can see us putting on our strobe light harness.
We have to cut and recrimp the harness.
And we like to install like connector style. That's what we did there. We just have little connectors now.
You're gonna see me charging the AC again.
On this specific vehicle, it goes to 0.765. Shouldn't change much. I mean, maybe on the bigger trucks, but usually it's 0.765 for all the 7.3s.
You're installing our plastics or push clips.
And a little intake port there.
You're checking our fluids.
You see, fill up the coolant, get the power steering fluid ready. Dan actually probably grabs that.
This takes Mercon 5 power steering fluid.
You can use LV though, it's not gonna make a difference really. You make sure you check your oil before you start it up.
This engine came pre-filled, so we didn't actually have to fill it.
It was nice how we started it. Just after you get it started, you wanna just roll your wheel back and forth, make sure the power steering fluid actually is at level. It's gonna go down a little bit after a little bit of you steering it back and forth. The pump's gonna pump it through.
Give yourself a once-over, make sure you hook up all your hose clamps, everything's sealed, no leaks.
Thank you guys for sticking around to the end. We are probably going to post once a week. If you want to stick around for those videos, like and subscribe. Have yourself a great day.